Hi guys, so today we are going to be playing around with a full face of Thrive Causemetics. I had asked you guys on Instagram stories if you were interested in this brand, and the resounding answer was yes. There was also some interest expressed for Wander Beauty, but I made the decision to place a kind of hefty order on Thrive Causemetics this month, and I'm going to be playing around and doing a full face of makeup with them today. I will say that I've been using these for the last week or so, and so I definitely have some opinions on the products that I am trying. Just a little bit on Thrive. So it was started by a woman named Krista Bodner, I think is how you say her last name. The whole premise behind the brand is that they wanted to be able to create a very high-end quality cosmetics and skincare line that was really focused on giving back to women's shelters, giving back to charities, giving back to domestic abuse survivors. They have a whole list of ways in which they donate, and so they have a whole section on their website I will link below about who they support, what are their causes, how do they give back, kind of some of those totals. But I really liked the premise, and then the more I looked at the products, the more I was kind of intrigued to try them. So I think I've got close to a full face of products here. I didn't buy absolutely everything, but I think I bought the things that A, I was interested in, and B, would allow me to kind of demo a full face of Thrive for you guys. Let me zoom in. For these try-on videos, I always like to be as close as possible so you guys can see. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually prime my eyes and around my eyes. So this is a different for me. Typically what I do is I do my face first and then come in and prime my eyes. But I bought this product called their Eye Lift 360 degree waterproof primer. And this primer kind of caught my eye because it actually is, it includes rather a Matrixyl 3000, which is a very well-researched peptide that has been proven to stimulate collagen in the skin. So I kind of liked the idea that what we're putting on our eyes to prime our eyeshadow is also going to be beneficial to that very delicate lid space, because I feel like a lot of times skincare products don't do well on that very delicate thin skin on our eyes. This one is a completely clear base. As you can see, it didn't do anything to kind of cover up any of the discoloration or veining that you see in my eye. So in that respect, I do wish it had a bit of a tint to it. It has a nice slip to it. On their website, in terms of how to use, it says apply a small amount to bare lids and let set for 30 seconds. The other thing that was interesting though is that they say you can use this underneath your eyes. So actually where you are putting concealer. So they said you can apply your eyeshadow or concealer or CC cream underneath your eyes. And so it's meant to go both on your lid as an eyeshadow primer, but also prime for concealer. And today, I need a little more. I am going to skip doing a traditional concealer, and I'm going to show you kind of what or how I've been able to use rather their CC cream as a bit of a concealer with this here, because I do think that because this has that grippy texture that you would associate with an eyeshadow primer, it actually does work to kind of boosts the coverage level of what is underneath, or what goes on top of it rather. I've definitely tried this with their eyeshadows as well as other eyeshadows that I know very well, just to see if I felt like I was getting good staying power with it, and I am. So I'm just going to kind of let that set around my eyes for a minute, and then let's go ahead and talk about their CC cream. So I think this is probably the product that they are maybe the most known for. So this is their Buildable Blur CC cream. It says it has blur effect technology, broad spectrum, SPF 35. For instructions, it says to apply 1 to 2 pumps using clean fingertips or sponge. For best results, apply a smooth, even layer and then use a damp sponge to tap into your skin and blend. On the back here, it actually says you can get to full coverage if you do 2 to 3 pumps. My experience with this is definitely buildable, so I do appreciate that flexibility. I am in the shade Fair Light. That is neutral undertones. It does come in 18 shades from light to deep. It does seem like it has a fairly broad shade range. If you're wearing this in a full coverage way, my gut tells me your shade needs to be a little more specific, so you may or may not find your perfect shade. If you're wearing it how I prefer to wear it, which is more as a light coverage foundation, it's definitely a little more forgiving. And then it does have both a chemical and physical SPF in here. I did want to call that out. So it has both octinoxate, octisalate as your chemical sunscreens, and then titanium dioxide and zinc oxide as your physical sunscreens. So wanted to call that out because I know some people have sensitivities both on the mineral as well as on the chemical side. So I'm just going to start with one pump here. It is a very creamy formula. It does have a bit of a peachy undertone to it, but I do feel like it adjusts well to my skin. And what I have been doing, I've applied this with my fingers, a brush, and a sponge. I actually think I like it the best actually with a brush or a sponge. I feel like it's a little too much coverage from my perspective to want to do full coverage, or sorry, my fingers with. I like my fingers for more light or sheer foundations, but I do think this blends very easily into the skin, and with a sponge and sort of a thin layer like that, I'm getting my sort of preferred light medium coverage. And I'm trying to avoid putting too much right under my under eyes because I do want to show you guys what this looks like with that primer, and then just using the foundation as my concealer. Now, if you are somebody who likes a really bright under eye, this might not be the best solution for you because obviously you're using the same shade under your eyes as you are on your face. But for me, I have kind of gotten to a point where I prefer a little bit, rather my concealer to be about the same as the rest of my face. So I just feel like this blends really easily. It sinks into the skin really easily. It's kind of nice and smoothing, if you guys can see that there. So that is what my skin looks like. You're seeing still a little bit of like sunspots peeking through, but it looks really nice around my chin, looks really nice around my nose, really nice on my forehead. And I feel like this is one that is sort of hydrating when you start, but if you give it a second to kind of set down, it will. And so I don't find that I need to come back in and set this one with powder. Now, I'm testing this in the wintertime and my skin is a little bit more dehydrated. And so I'm noticing that my skin is naturally sort of absorbing some of the moisturizing factors in my foundations, and so I'm not having to set them as much as I probably will come spring and summer. So I'm just going to do a half pump here, really kind of just a small dot on the back of my hand, and I'm just going to use my finger to start with, my ring finger, and I'm going to put a little bit of this underneath this eye, and then I'm just going to start to tap this out with my finger. And as you can see, when you do a little bit more of a concentrated area or concentrated amount in a smaller area, that's quite a lot of coverage, right? So I definitely feel like this is going to get you to medium to full coverage if that is what you want on your face. Because I did the primer underneath and then because I added a little bit more product here, I really feel like this is giving me the kind of concealer that I want. Now, is this like full coverage concealer? No, it's probably more like medium, but I think it's made a huge difference between my eyes. So I may come back and set just my under eyes. We're going to kind of let them sit for a minute while we move on to eyes. I did not pick up any of their brow products, so I'm just going to run a little bit of my brow gel through my brows. All right, so for my eyes, I picked up a little eyeshadow palette. They have stick shadows that I think they've gotten kind of popular for, but I kind of looked at swatches online and then looked at the colors and I just didn't feel like super drawn to any of their shadow sticks. And instead, I thought I'd try a product that I don't feel like gets as much attention. And so this is their little eyeshadow quad. It's in really pretty packaging, sort of has this like beveled raised feeling to them. So this is their Focus Eyeshadow Palette. This is palette number 1. So this has some satins and metallics. These 3 are satins here, and then this is a metallic. So there are no mattes in here, but I just looked at the colors and I thought, you know what, this could be a really pretty easy one shadow look. I don't mind deepening shadows with satins in the corners or even up through my crease. I have done a sort of smoky eye with these two colors down here, and then on a different day I actually used the bronzer that I have, we'll talk about here in a second, and then put that in the crease and then put this sort of light shade all over my lid. In terms of today's look, I think I'm going to use the gold all over my lid, kind of even up above my crease, and then maybe deepen a little bit with the satin shade and kind of use this in my inner corner and kind of keep my eyes a little simple because I do want the mascara to really show up on camera. And sometimes if you use darker shades all over your lid, you can't see lashes quite as easily. So I'm just using a Wayne Goss number 18 flat shader brush, and I picked that up and I'm going to plop that in the center of the lid. Now I find that these metallics, or all of these shadows, apply really well with a brush, and you are getting really nice full pigmentation with a brush. Like, I don't feel like you need to wet a brush. I don't need to go in with my finger. Like, it's giving me a really, really nice shiny pigmentation. And what I'm gonna do is take a clean-ish, clean in the sense that I'm putting it on a paper towel and nothing's coming off, brush here. And I'm just going to kind of diffuse the edges. I'm not looking for this to be a super dark look today. In fact, I've got some filming I need to do, and so what I think I'm probably going to end up doing is doing a look with this and then keeping my eyes simple and maybe changing out my lips. So I'm going to take two tiny pencil brushes from Wayne Goss. This is his number 20, which is smaller, and then his number 19, which is a little fluffier. I'm going to take number 20 first, and I'm going to go into this satin shade here, tap off, and then just add a little tiny bit of depth in this corner. Like I said, I'm not looking for this to be a super smoky eye today. I really want to let the gold shine, but I also want to have just a hint of depth that I'm not going to get by just leaving it gold. And then with the number 19 brush, I'm just going to blend this out into the gold just a smidge. And that kind of gives me my uplifted shape that I like as well. So I'm just tapping out the little bit of creasing that I've gotten underneath my eyes. And then before I add shadow underneath my eyes, I'm going to add just a hint of powder. I didn't buy any powders from them simply because I've not been wearing a lot of powder. So I'm just going to use my Hourglass Veil powder and just a small Real Techniques fluffy brush and add just the tiniest amount of powder. Actually, I think I'm going to take this little pencil brush and start with the gold. I can always deepen it if I want later, but I'm kind of feeling like I might want a more wide opened eye today. Just going to add a hint of that brown just in the outer corner here to kind of connect my lower lash line with my upper. And then I'm going to take this sort of satin cream shade here on a little Milani crease brush and plop that in my inner corner here just to brighten. This is not a super metallic shade, so this actually works as a fantastic sort of inner corner brightening shade because it adds that light and luminosity without being metallic, which is what I prefer in that inner corner area. So that's just a very simple bronzy eye. Like I said, this is not the most like shockingly innovative, like standout sort of eyeshadow quad in the sense that like you're gonna get groundbreaking shadows in here, but I definitely feel like all of them perform. They all last on my eyes. They've got good grip. They blend really easily with a brush. I have had no issues with fading even after very long days. So that is the little quad from Thrive. The other product that I think they're incredibly well known for, and I think it might be actually their number one product in terms of what they're well known for, is their mascara. So this is their Liquid Lash Extensions mascara. Retails for $24. It's won all kinds of awards. It is a tubing mascara, and it is my first sort of experience with a tubing mascara. And so a tubing mascara coats your lashes, and then at the end of the night with warm water, you kind of just rinse it off your lashes. And it's kind of an odd experience because I am used to my oil cleanser, dissolving my eye makeup and kind of rinsing away so that when I go to do my second cleanse, there's nothing left on my face. And what I found is that my oil cleanser is not getting this tubing mascara off. It is really when I'm going with my second cleanser and then rinsing my face with that the little tubes are kind of just coming off my eyelashes. This tube is actually quite heavy. I was, out of all the products here, I lifted this up and I was like, wow, that feels like a luxury mascara tube. So I'm still kind of struggling with the best way to apply mascara on camera so you guys can see my lashes. Sometimes I feel like they don't show up when I'm looking straight on. The mascara wand in this is a sort of cone shaped wand, and it is a not natural bristle brush, it's sort of a silicone wand. I will say about this mascara is that it is probably the most lengthening mascara I've ever used in my life. It's not super volumizing, so hopefully I can show you what I mean here. So there is my lashes with and without, and as you can see, like, I have got some seriously long lashes going on right here. Like, definitely the longest my lashes have ever looked with any mascara. Now, I don't think, like I said, it's the most necessarily volumizing, but it's definitely separating my lashes and making them like obnoxiously long. All right, so that is eyes done and mascara on. The only other thing I want to add about the mascara is I talked about how it kind of comes off in these little tubes and you need to use just like a sort of lukewarm water to kind of rinse them off. I do find that I have to kind of do this sort of downward sweeping motion a few times to get it all off. And so in that respect, I do feel like I'm doing a little bit more pulling and tugging on my lashes than I typically do with a just regular mascara in terms of getting it off. Because like I said, if I'm using a regular mascara, even a waterproof mascara, my oil cleanser just eats through that and I can very gently kind of rub that around my eyes and my face and then rinse it off and it's just gone. With this, I feel like I'm having to kind of gently pull on my lashes downward to get the little tubes off and rinse them off, and I have to do that probably 4 or 5 times to get all of the little tubes off my eyes. So in that respect, I am a little nervous that I might be putting a little bit more strain on my eyelashes than I would otherwise. I haven't noticed losing any lashes excessively or when I do the tube that I'm pulling out lashes. It's just an observation based on kind of how I'm removing this. That being said, this isn't transferring. It is absolutely staying on throughout the day. It's keeping my lashes very lifted and long and separated, and I really like how my lashes look with this mascara. So I don't know if this mascara is going to like replace all other mascaras in my collection, but I do really like it, and I feel like when I really want those lengths, when I'm doing, when I really want my lashes to show up super long, this mascara is probably the best I've ever used. Okay, in terms of face, I did pick up a powder bronzer from them. This is their Sun Chaser Blur and Sculpt Bronzing Powder. They have 2 shades. So they had one that was matte, that was Rhea, which is what I got. And I think it's a really nice neutral color. It's not too warm, it's not too yellow, it's not too cool. I mean, it really is a nice neutral undertone. They had one that was satin that I kind of went back and forth on because it looks a little bit cooler or maybe a little bit pinker, and I kind of feel like I wish I'd gotten that one just because my preference is not for matte powder products on my skin anymore. I like a satin bronzer or a satin or a glowy blush, so I kind of wish I had gotten EOS, but I was a little nervous that it was going to be too dark on me. They only have the 2 colors and they say that it's a buildable bronzer color, and because it's buildable, it's supposed to work for a lot of different skin tones. But what I found with this bronzer, it is super pigmented, so I definitely feel like I understand the buildable aspect and why this might work on more skin tones than you would first expect. I actually have to use a very fluffy brush with this and go in very lightly, or it's just too intense for me. So I'm using a Wayne Goss number 14 brush. It's very light and floppy. I use this also for very intense blushes. So I will load the brush, tap off any excess, and then I am actually kind of taking this into a paper towel tissue and tapping a little bit of the excess off and then coming in as a bronzer, because I want to be able to build this up. And the first time I used this, I went in with my usual bronzer brush, which is from Wayne Goss. It's sort of his paddle-shaped brush here, and it's a little more dense, it's a little bigger, and I just ended up with like crazy bronzer cheeks. So I am just I've switched brushes to something lighter and fluffier, and then, like I said, I am very, very slowly building up that product. And I do think it blends really easily. Like, even on the day that I used this, that I over applied it, I still feel like I was able to blend it out, and I kind of, it wasn't patchy or weird. It was just a lot more intense than I am typically going for. So like I said, I'm just picking up product, make sure it's evenly on the brush, and then tapping it off onto that tissue before I go in any further. So I do think it's pretty. I definitely feel like I like this matte bronzer more than a lot of the other ones in my collection. I'm planning a bronzer declutter here, and I can already say with 100% certainty I will be getting rid of the Too Faced Matte Chocolate Soleil bronzer and keeping this in its place in terms of matte bronzers in my collection that I will use and like. And it is really smoothing. It's really blendable. Like I said, the thing that I've noticed with all of the Thrive products that I've tried is that they are really blendable and they're very easy to work with. Just be aware in the case of the bronzer, if you're as fair as I am on pigmentation levels. But like, that's beautiful. It blended like a dream, looks really natural, looks really pretty. I'm just gonna take a little down my neck. So that is the bronzer. This is a very, I should also say, this compact, and it's the same compact as the blush we're going to talk about next, is very heavy in the hand. I think it definitely feels like a high-end product. The way the lid opens too kind of has a sort of soft open lid. It almost reminds me of like the soft closed drawers in your bathroom. It has sort of a very nice hingy, heavy, weighty feel in the hand that just, it feels like a quality compact, I guess is what I'm saying. They have two blush shades here. I really debated these quite a bit. And they have one called Rosie Copper that said it was a rose shimmer. And then they had another one called Angelica, which was a golden brick shimmer. And I was more drawn to Angelica in terms of that sort of peachy tone, but I got a little nervous looking at the swatches that it was going to be significantly too dark for me. So I made the decision to go with the lighter one here, which is a pink that has a sort of gold, I don't know, pearl running through it. It's not super gold. Like, it's not a blush that I put on and I immediately feel like I've gotten this weird bronze stripe on my face the way that I've talked about with the highlighters. I think sometimes that can be too gold, or even blushes that have too strong of this color gold pigment in them. It is pigmented, but not overly pigmented. So I do feel like I probably picked the right shade in that respect. I'm just going to use a Wayne Goss number 11 brush, and as you can see, it definitely, it shows up. So I'm just kind of lightly putting this on the apples of my cheek and up. And I decided not to get a highlighter because I looked like their highlighters were going to all be too dark for me. And I felt like with this sort of strobing blush that had as much pearl in it as this one did, it's giving me really pretty glow on my cheeks without necessarily needing a highlighter. This is definitely a bright pink blush, but because of the goldish undertones in it that are more neutral, I do feel like it's pink without being like bubblegum bubbly pink. And so I do think it's a pink that is really wearable, and I really like the finish on this as well. There's no sparkle, there's no glitter. It gives a really pretty glow. It's just it's very youthful. I think it's really pretty. So I got two lip products. The first was a lip liner in sort of a neutral brownish shade. This is their Lip Filler Long Wearing Plus Plumping Lip Liner. I ended up getting the shade Kackie, which was described as a mocha. If you haven't found Kackie Loves Beauty, I would highly recommend her. She tends to focus mostly on clean beauty and does a very natural, really pretty makeup aesthetic, but she has worked with Thrive and is friends with the owner. They actually ended up collabing and doing a lip pencil color with her name on it last year, which I think is kind of cool. It's a retractable lip pencil, and it does have a little sharpener down here in the bottom, like oh so many of them do. I do think it's a really pretty brown mocha shade. I immediately wanted to swatch it next to Charlotte Tilbury's sort of brown mocha shade in Iconic Nude. And so this is the Kackie shade from Thrive here on the end, and then here is Iconic Nude from Charlotte Tilbury. I do feel like I prefer Charlotte Tilbury just a little bit more because it is this like, it has a hint more of a rosy undertone to it, and so I do feel like for someone who is cool toned, it's just a hint more flattering on my lip. But I do still think this is a wearable color and one that can help add a little bit of shadow around the outside of your mouth, and so it can make your lips look a little bit bigger than they might otherwise. So I'm kind of going to demo that for you guys today. So what I do is I don't overline a ton. I'm kind of just barely overlining my lips. So I'm kind of putting the pencil so that it's kind of sitting on top of my line. So maybe half of the pencil line is beyond my lip and the rest of it's actually on my lip. And that way I feel like it's a slightly more realistic way of overlining. And I will say that this is a very smooth formula. Like, it's very easy to apply. It just glides on your lips. Now, I've always been a little nervous about retractable lip pencils drying out because there's just air around this in the bottom. And every time you are taking off this little end to sharpen it, more air is getting around the product. Whereas a wooden pencil like Charlotte Tilbury, there's not air getting into this product. You're really just only exposing the product at the very top when you sharpen it. So it'll be interesting to see, does it maintain this creaminess, you know, fast forward 6 months. It's not too glidey in the sense that it's not really going to set down, but it's not so stiff that you're like tugging at your lips to apply it. And now that I've kind of drawn it in here, I'm just going to start to feather it in just a little bit. And I'm going to start in the outer part of my mouth and kind of start to feather it in. But I'm kind of leaving the inner part of my mouth, or inner part of my lips rather, open. And then I'm just gonna take my finger and smudge that around. And honestly, if I went over this with like a clear gloss or a, you know, a light sheer gloss, they would kind of meld together and look absolutely beautiful together. And then in terms of lip products, they have bulleted lipsticks that I looked at. They have something called a Lip Mate High Shine Reviving Topper, and then they had something called a Glossy Lip Hydrating Serum. That is ultimately what I chose to get because the idea of a lip serum kind of appealed to me. I was still thinking this was going to be sort of a lightweight gloss, and what I found is that this thing actually packs a huge amount of pigment. Like, it is glossy, but it's like full-on pigmentation, which kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. And maybe I would have if I'd read the description a little more closely, because it says it is a supremely hydrating lip serum featuring a shine of a gloss and the intensity of a lipstick in a creamy lightweight formula. It's formulated with time-released hyaluronic acid microspheres, and it's a hybrid formula that is color payoff with a non-sticky glossy finish. I got the shade Pamela, which was described as a brown mauve, and it's a little bit deeper than I would have realized, but I actually really like the shade. And I also feel like it melds in with that brown liner really well. Even though that liner is a lot more brown than this lipstick, when you actually put them side by side, you can see the liner is a lot more brown, and that's a lot more of a sort of mauvey berry brown. It works really well together. This is a really beautiful formula. If I wear it on its own, I can sheer it out a little bit more, so you've got more of this sort of soft stainy effect like you see there, or you can go on full on pigmented like this. I feel like because I also have the liner on, things are kind of locked into place. They're not moving around on my lips. My lips look really hydrated and plump and pretty, and it's a really nice formula. Like it's I wouldn't call it a lip vinyl per se. It has a serum like texture, sort of serum gloss hybrid with a ton of pigment in them. It's really nice. As you would expect, this is not a long lasting 8-hour sort of wear on it, but I'm also not finding that this is getting on my teeth. I'm not finding that this is getting all over my face or smudging or anything like that. It's actually a very easy to work with product, I guess is what I would say. So here's the final look. Nothing too crazy, kind of a classic makeup look, and I kind of feel like that's what this brand stands for. Sort of classic natural beauty in a very easy to apply, very simple, easy to blend sort of way. And that's kind of what I feel like I'm getting from all of these products. Nothing I've worked with was complicated, difficult to blend, difficult to work with, didn't last throughout the day. Like I think in general, when I've used the foundations, when I've used the eyeshadows, I just always walk away going, that's a really pretty look. I really like how this has come together. So I'm pretty impressed with everything I've tried from Thrive. Honestly, I think the only thing that's given me any sort of pause at this point has been just the removal of that mascara. But that in and of itself is even not a deal breaker for me. And like I said, I really love how smoothing everything looks, how blended everything is, how easy it was to work with, and I'm definitely intrigued to try more products from Thrive in the future. So hopefully this video gave you a sense for Thrive as a brand and some of what I think are their sort of hero products and kind of seeing how a full face of Thrive will come together. Like I said, very impressed with them as a brand and definitely one that I'm going to have my eye on going into the future. And definitely am interested in trying some of the products from them that I have not tried. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. Look forward to chatting with you down in the comments.